Common sense for nutrition. You know, common sense isn't so common today. But if people use common sense, I believe that a lot of people would be healthier. See, the problem is, though, that so many people are uneducated. They've not learned the difference between pasteurized milk and raw milk, even though that's common sense, but has been forgotten because of all of the years that we've grown up and been given pasteurized milk. We actually think that that is normal, that we get it from the grocery store. That's what's normal. And so people forget history. They forget history. They forget common sense things, that milk comes from a cow. Instead of milk comes from a cow, and then that milk goes through pasteurization, becomes homogenized, and then sits on the shelf at the grocery store. So it goes through all these different steps. But see, we don't think common sense. We just take things for granted. We follow the crowd, even if the crowd's headed to the slaughterhouse. And my thing that I'm going to stress is that we need to return back to this common sense mindset when it comes to eating healthy. For example, anybody that steps out into the wilderness and observes the animals out there will notice that they're all eating from the earth or things on the earth, such as other animals, if they're carnivorous creatures or omnivores. And that all of these things that they're consuming are natural. They are not processed. They are not tampered with, but are natural things that they're eating. And you would also observe that these animals are healthy animals. They aren't obese. They don't have diabetes. At least I've never observed any of these animals to have some of these degenerative diseases. Now, domesticated animals that we feed our processed foods to get many of the same degenerative diseases, cancer, tumors as humans. So we can observe two things. One, that the wild animals are eating a natural diet, and two, the wild animals appear to be healthy. So common sense would suggest to us then that, well, maybe then the reason why we're so sick is because we don't eat natural foods. We're eating frankenfoods that are loaded with all these chemicals and preservatives and things that really ought not to be in our food. And then we take natural foods like milk and we heat it up to 192 degrees Fahrenheit and destroy all of the things in the milk. You know, common sense. If a calf isn't going to grow when it drinks pasteurized milk, then why would we think it would be good for humans? Common sense. Common sense really comes in handy when thinking about becoming healthier. Now, sometimes, though, common sense can get people into trouble, into faulty reasoning and thinking, though, as well. Because you could argue, well, humans are the only species on this planet that consumes milk from another species. And on the surface, that would seem to be true, although there's many other animals that, given the chance, would quickly consume the milk from another species, such as cats drinking cow's milk, dogs, what have you. So it isn't common sense to just think that we're the only species that drinks milk. Of course we're not. And many animals thrive and do very well on other animals' milk. So that's one example of where common sense could get you into trouble, or give you a wrong conclusion without looking at all of the evidence. So I would stress that when using common sense, it's also important to look at all the facts, look at all the evidence, look at history, and make a good conclusion based on that. But instead of using some faulty reasoning that we come up with. Common sense would tell us that we get vitamin D from the sun. Most people aren't in the sun. Therefore, making sure we have vitamin D3 would definitely be helpful for us. But yet that flies right over the heads of some people, and they don't even consider that. And then wonder why we're getting diseases and things. Well, if you have a deficiency of vitamin D, it can cause disease. It manifests. A lot of these deficiencies that we get will manifest themselves as diseases. Toxicity can manifest itself as disease. So it's just a manifestation of deficiencies, toxicity, things going on in our lives that most of the time are usually corrected. Unless the diseases progress and advance so much to where the point that it's hard to reverse. Again, common sense. You eat natural foods, and it makes sense, so therefore you should become healthier. But if you don't use common sense, if you don't think for yourself, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. See, because what happens is a lot of times people will go to their doctor, and their doctor will tell them, do this, do that, do this, take that. And they just believe them, thinking that they know all of the answers, without even thinking for themselves. It's like the sheep being led to the slaughterhouse. It's kind of like, a good analogy of this is science, right? Scientists tell us all of these things, but really science doesn't tell us anything. Scientists do. And scientists are going to say things based on their presuppositions, their worldview. So, whatever scientists are telling you might not actually be science, because it may be biased based on their presuppositions. Well, the same thing is true really when it comes to nutrition. Somebody may give you, so they say, a fact of nutrition, but that might not actually be accurate, because it's just basically they've been influenced to say what they've been saying because of what they believe about the world. For example, vegans have sometimes these very strong beliefs, and that influences how they think about food. And that's why many times they will vehemently disregard anything that's said about the goodness of certain animal products, because they've automatically assumed in their mind and in their belief system that they're inherently bad and evil, without actually looking at all of the facts, without actually looking at history, without actually using with using a rational mind, and over assuming, and trying to make everything very simplistic so that you can wrap it all in a nice box, wrap it up, put a bow on it, and say, here, I give you now all of the answers to nutrition. So take this box, this present that I have given to you, and all of your answers will be revealed to you. You will open the box of health. But frankly, things are a lot more complicated than that. Life is complicated. There's many things that we don't know, and a lot of what we say is speculation at best, especially when it comes to nutrition. I'll be the first to admit I don't know everything about nutrition, but what I do know is that throughout history, we've been eating animal products and plant products. And it seems to have suited our ancestors well, and people before us were healthy and free from disease. At least they didn't have such a high prevalence of disease as we have today in modernized countries. So, for people trying to put everything in a little box and trying to understand everything, take a step back and humble yourself and realize that, maybe there's some things that I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be so hardcore, and maybe I shouldn't be so vehemently opposed to people that consume animal products. Maybe I'm wrong in my thinking. Maybe I should say instead that to my present knowledge from the information that I've learned, I don't believe that they're good for us. But that's my opinion. But see, sometimes speak in a way that comes across as, thou shalt not eat animal products. So, I know I've gotten carried away here in this video, and hopefully it, makes a little bit of sense, but use common sense, people. Use common sense. It will save your life.